Hello, students. Welcome to our unit, Rain of Love. As usual, let's start our lesson with a reading comprehension. The pigeons. The common pigeons are found all over our country. You may think of them as nuisance, as their droppings can dirty the outside areas of our homes. The nesting of pigeons can make a lot of noise on rooftops and windowsills. But here are a few facts about pigeons that might make you look at this creature with new respect. Doves and pigeons are different species of the same bird family. White doves have long been considered as a symbol of peace and good luck around the world. Pigeons can find their way back home even from hundreds of miles away. For thousands of years, they have been used by people for carrying messages. Pigeons are also used for racing. Racing pigeons are very expensive. Pigeons are thought to be among the most intelligent creatures on the earth. Students, we like birds, right? We love to hear their chirping and watch their activities. In our country, we see plenty of pigeons. Even though they are so beautiful, we don't want to meet them near our houses because their dropping can dirty our houses. Their nesting can make a lot of noise to our rooftops and windowsills. Anyway, they are the most intelligent creatures on the earth. They can be used for racing and carrying messages. They have the ability to find their way back home even from hundreds of miles away. Students, have you got some information about pigeons? Let's go back to our lesson. Last class we learned that grandfather and grandmother identified that Raja was missing. They understood Raja was not at home. Now we have come to the last part of our lesson, Life with Grandfather. What all events do we see under this title, The News Spreads? Let's see. The news spreads. Then grandfather stood up and went outside and called aloud, "Come, Raja, come, I won't beat you." But I did not answer him, for I thought that he would beat me. Grandmother was angry and said, "He won't come, you drove him away. I heard you say that you would beat him if he came home. Poor child, he's afraid of you and has run away." Grandfather called the servants and asked them to go out and look for me. They went out, but after a while returned to say that they could not find me. Grandmother started weeping. Grandfather started walking up and down the courtyard. The news that I was missing spread. Our neighbors came first, then our relatives, and then others who had heard the bad news. Many came to offer their sympathies to grandmother. Grandfather did not like this. He shouted, "Nothing has happened to the boy. He's hiding somewhere. Can't some of you go out and find him instead of wasting your time here?" Some of them went out to search for me. More and more people came, and soon there was a big crowd. By now, grandmother had lost all hope of seeing me again. She started telling the people what a good boy I was. the search parties returned without finding me. Grandmother started weeping loudly. The women in the crowd also wept. The servants of the house joined in the wailing. They all acted as if I were dead. I felt very sorry for grandmother. I wanted to come out. Grandfather was a man of strong will, but I knew that he too felt very sad. He did not, however, lose hope. He stood up, turned in the direction of our family temple, and prayed. "Help me, God," he said. "Give me my child. I want him now. I cannot wait any longer." He then stood silent in prayer. At that moment, Uncle returned. He learned what was happening at home. He looked around and guessed where I was. He came to the cowshed and asked me to come down. I came down. Uncle took me into the house. Grandfather had just finished his prayer and turned. As he opened his eyes, he saw me standing before him. He took me up in his arms in joy, hugged me, and said, "God heard my prayers and has given you back to us." Grandfather started calling Raja loudly. He assured Raja that he wouldn't beat Raja. Raja heard it, but he did not answer him because Raja thought grandfather would beat him. Grandmother felt angry with grandfather because she heard grandfather's words that he would beat him if he came home. According to grandmother's opinion, the child ran away for he was afraid of grandfather. Servants were called by grandfather. They were instructed to go out and look for Raja, but they couldn't find Raja. Grandma started crying. Grandpa became restless. The neighbors, relatives, and others came home after hearing the bad news to offer their sympathies to grandmother. Grandfather could not accept it. He became angry and shouted at them by saying nothing had happened to the boy. He was hiding somewhere. He continued, "Instead of wasting their time there, some of them should go out and find the boy." After hearing these words, some of them went out to search for Raja. More people came to the house. Grandmother lost all the hope of seeing Raja. She started telling the people what a good boy Raja was. The people who went for searching Raja came back without finding Raja. Grandma started weeping loudly. The women and the servants started weeping and wailing. All of them behaved as if Raja was dead. He felt sorry for grandmother. He wanted to come out. Raja knew that grandpa felt very sad even though he was a man of strong will. He stood up, turned in the direction of their family temple and prayed with hope. He pleaded God for Raja and then stood silent in prayer. Meanwhile, Raja's uncle returned. He understood what was happening at home. He guessed where Raja was hiding and asked Raja to come down. Raja followed his uncle. He took Raja into the house. Grandfather found Raja before him. As soon as he finished his prayer, he became happy and took Raja in his arms and hugged him. He said that God had heard his prayers and gave Raja back to them. Here ends our lesson.